Good evening. I now call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. It is our tradition to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is announcements. Come join us for Sweater Weather Bingo. Grab your coziest sweater and hang out with us for an afternoon of bingo, coffee, and camaraderie. The event will take place on October 23rd at 1 p.m. at the Victoria Recreation Center. There is a $5 per person fee for bingo. Halloween in Victoria is a fun-filled, family-friendly event hosted by the Victoria Lions and the Victoria Business Association. The event is held downtown and will take place on Saturday, October 25th from 1 to 3:30 p.m. There are no further announcements this evening. I do have a proclamation in front of me that I will read from the dais, declaring October 2025 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas more than 10 million adults experience domestic violence and over 1.5 million high school students are physically abused by dating partners annually in the United States, and whereas more than 23,000 calls are placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide every day, and whereas calls to our local domestic abuse crisis line, Southern Valley Alliance, have significantly increased in the last year. And whereas the impact of domestic violence is felt not only by the individuals and families, but communities and the nation as a whole. And whereas the City of Victoria joins with others across the state of Minnesota and nationwide in supporting domestic violence victims and survivors, the advocates and organizations who serve them, and holding offenders accountable in the City of Victoria. Now, therefore, I, Deborah McMillan, Mayor of the City of Victoria, do hereby proclaim October 2025 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and encourage all citizens to engage in the work and events sponsored by the Southern Valley Alliance and other organizations working toward the elimination of domestic violence. The next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Move to adopt the final agenda.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the open forum. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. We have one individual who has registered in advance to speak this evening, Ms. Kim Lose, Community Outreach Manager for Southern Valley Alliance. Ms. Lose, if you are present. Oh, we have somebody else. Please step.
Not Kim, Mayor.
You are not Kim,
No.
but please state your name for our record, please, and welcome.
Thank you very much, members of the council and mayor. My name is Brady Jewell. I'm the Chief of Police of Savage Police Department. I'm also a Chaska resident, and today I'm speaking to you and the members of the audience here as the President of the Board of Directors of Southern Valley Alliance. And if you have a few minutes, may I read something?
Please.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear okay? Again, thank you for having me here today. As mentioned, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and now more than ever, it is imperative that the city recognizes and works to combat domestic abuse. Thank you so much for doing the proclamation. We really appreciate that. Southern Valley Alliance is the only organization to provide services to victims of domestic abuse in Scott and Carver counties. Within the last few years, SVA has helped more than 31 survivors in Victoria alone. Answering over 2,000 calls on our crisis line annually, we assist victims and survivors in their greatest time of need by providing crisis intervention, emotional support, resources, and safety planning. SVA is a prevention and solutions-focused organization, and we partner with law enforcement, social services, and healthcare providers to make the communities of Scott and Carver counties a safer place to live. Southern Valley Alliance was founded in the early 1980s by a Belle Plaine woman who experienced spousal abuse. SVA moved to Shakopee in January 2024, and since we've experienced a 20% increase in the demand for our services because of the greater accessibility, to our advocacy center. Victims and survivors are now able to reach us more than ever before. As a community-based and community-funded organization, Southern Valley Alliance is facing significant federal, state, and local funding cuts. Amidst these cuts, it is imperative that the City of Victoria recognizes Domestic Violence Awareness Month and does all it can to support the victims and survivors today and throughout the year. And again, for the proclamation and just mentioning it, you're bringing awareness to this situation in your community, and I truly appreciate that. We encourage community members to follow us on social media and learn more about our website, svamn.org. There, you can make purchases of collector police patches through the Purple Patch program. This is a program I spearheaded with the other chiefs of police in all of Scott and Carver County. Now in Carver County, you have the Carver County Sheriff's Department that provides police protection for your community, along with the Chaska Police Department. And then there's another 9 organizations in Scott County that provide law enforcement. I got them all together to create a first of the kind in the state, where every department created a purple patch that some of the officers are wearing on their uniform to bring awareness to domestic violence, especially during this month. You can go on svamn.org, shameless plug there for you, and buy 1 or all 10 of these patches to show support. 100% of the proceeds go to helping victims of domestic violence. Again, I want to thank you all. Just even reading that proclamation brings awareness. Every community, no matter how affluent or how poor, faces domestic violence. I myself am on my 30th year in law enforcement. 23 of them served to the south here at the Chaska Police Department. So I'm very familiar with the issues in our communities. And it is no different over in Savage, over in Shakopee, any place. All our communities face domestic violence. And what is so significant about SVA is every time we go to a home during a domestic violence incident, as soon as it's safe to do so, we put that victim on the phone with an advocate. And research shows that the sooner you get a victim to resources, the better the outcomes. And our main goal is to break the cycle of domestic violence. With that, again, thank you so much. I can answer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'm making the tour. I'm going to Chanhassen in a couple weeks to just bring awareness to October Domestic Violence Awareness.
Thank you, Chief Jewell. Thank you for your service to our community, and thank you for representing Southern Valley Alliance this evening. Council, any questions for Chief Jewell? Seeing none, thank you.
It's an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate time.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not an application form?
Are we able to speak on the rezoning?
This is not a public hearing this evening, so, and it is,
Aren't you signing?
we are, yeah, it is on our agenda this evening.
Okay, then I would like to speak.
Well, we aren't taking any public comment on anything on the agenda this evening. The public hearing was held at the Planning Commission, correct.
Right, okay, and we had like a week notice. Some people got a postcard in the mail a week beforehand, others got nothing. You can't just ram these things through.
Okay, we
There will be a lawsuit against each and every one of you if you try and do this.
we would,
I have more signatures, and I have a map that shows how many people are against this. It's 93% of the neighborhoods you are trying to rezone.
thank you.
She wants
Go-
5 minutes to speak. I want 3 minutes, that's all.
And who wants the petition? Because it seemed to have disappeared.
Anybody
No,
else?
we've received the petition.
Zoning issue?
We've received the petition. Council, how are you feeling about this? Do we want to?
When you work for us, you better listen to us.
We pay your salary, so.
Mayor, I don't have an objection.
Mayor, if I can jump in on
Yeah,
the process question. So, I mean,
Attorney Bowles,
for the benefit of the residents, and I suspect they know this, but the way the vast majority of cities in Minnesota work is, well, first of all, statutorily, it's required that to the extent you have a planning commission, that you hold zoning-related hearings at the planning commission. And I am not going to say here tonight, if the council wishes to hear from folks about this again, you've given an opportunity at your planning commission. I'm certainly not going to say that you can't do that. You could do that if you wanted to. But I would say that as a general practice, it is a bad practice for cities to have a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission and then sort of reopen or have a separate public hearing in front of the City Council. What you get then is you get different input at the Planning Commission than you get at the City Council. And that is to be avoided. Cities want to have a single record of the input that residents give. So the best practice is to do it once. If council wants to hear from folks, again, I'm not going to stand in the way, but the best practice is to follow state law, which is what the vast majority of cities do.
All right, very good, thank you.
Well, we were like.
Attorney Boyce.
Planning meeting, so.
Okay. You can, why don't you go ahead and leave the petition and things with staff, and please feel free to join us for the conversation on the agenda. Any other comments from council? All right. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are routine administrative and do not require deliberation or are housekeeping items that are required by law. They're approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull any consent items for separate discussion and vote?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Council, any members that would like to see items pulled for a separate discussion and vote? No. Anyone in the audience wanting to pull something from the consent agenda item for separate discussion and vote? Seeing none, can I get a motion for our consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the October 13th consent agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our regular agenda, our first item is item 6.1, which is a mid-year report from our Senior Advisory Committee. Presenting this evening is our chair, Alina Passarelli. Did I do that right? Chair Passarelli, welcome so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor and council members. It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Alina Passarelli, and I'll answer anything close to that. We're excited to just report on what we've been working on and what we hope to achieve in the next year, our 2025 goals and what we've accomplished so far. I also have my vice chair here, Sharon. She will be piping in on some information as well. So the first item that we want to talk about is we created the Seniors Resources Packet, which is available on the website. I've only been part of this committee for a year, and I can tell you that our neighboring cities emulate it and have really appreciated the fact that we've put together those resources for our senior community. Part of our goal for this year is to make that available in a non-digital form to members, trying to figure out how to reach our seniors who don't have access to the internet or don't know how to use it. All right, so that is a big agenda. If you ever come to our meetings, you'll know that we're working hard on that. We are also learning a lot. So we recently were involved in the Carver County senior meeting down at the Arboretum with our other city senior advisory committees and just learning from each other. And what we've learned is a lot of them are able to reach their seniors in the community through utility statements, through ways that are already happening. And to be honest with you, a lot of them, I'm just going to give you, for instance, my 80-year-old mother lives with me. She's walker bound, doesn't drive, so she doesn't get down here to grab a resource packet, right? And so how do we get to her? And I think that we're getting there. So we're excited to hopefully see us reach more seniors with resources and access opportunities. We have also become a community stakeholder in the Downtown West Phase 1 and 2 planning discussions. We have been included in conversations about Central Green, public spaces, and amenities, and we're so thankful for that. So I can just tell you that a lot of the seniors that we've spoke to over the summer are really happy that the trails have had great signage about the e-bikes, right? So things like that have made a big difference, and it's nice that we're being heard. We were part of developing the walking trail and plan on the walkability study in 2023 and 2024. We were able to review the walking plan, and we have several council members that use it, and we're part of that planning process, so we really appreciate being part of that. We continue to engage in the Carver County Office of Aging. We actually have a staff member that attends our monthly meetings now, and has given us great insight into what other resources we can be adding into our resource guide, and what our surrounding communities are doing. One of the big topics of conversation right now are transportation options, and getting that information to our homebound seniors here locally. So we're working on that. WeCab and Southwest Transit are options, but they cost money, and a lot of people just don't have access to that ability, so we're working on that. We are deeply engaged in conversations about what a senior community center would look like here. We have visited all of our local senior community centers. We see what they are able to do. We have been in conversations with the rec center and how we could potentially utilize a certain portion of that area for regular engagements with our senior community. But we have big plans, we have big ideas. We would love to see, you know, weekly gatherings, whether it's games or health opportunities, technology training, you know. So we're working on that. Recently, we just approved some furniture for the lower lobby of the rec center that will be a little more senior accessible, kind of down where the public library is right now, the community library. So we're kind of excited about that, just to see, hopefully we see a little more gathering and socializing happening with people, but we want to expand that if possible. One of the things we've done this summer is we actually got out there in the community, and we had pop-up events at new park engagements and at the car show, and we're able to provide the senior resource guide and then ask, you know, from our community members what they'd like to see in Victoria to be a more accessible, active living senior community for 55 plus. And Sharon is going to let you know how that went.
Great. Thank you, Alina. Sharon, please.
Thank you.
Sharon Belfoot, and I live in Ablite, right off Lions Park, right in the senior community. This is our senior resource guide that has gone statewide. We developed it. If anybody hasn't seen it, we encourage you to go through it. We have phone numbers, addresses. We have a growing senior community coming. As you well know, we have a lot of development here in Victoria. So I went this summer to several agendas that we had, the car shows, and I was at a table with other senior committee members for senior, basically brochures to update seniors. We have seniors here with a real digital. They're not aware or knowledgeable with even with their phones. Some of them don't have iPads or laptops. So we don't have a newspaper, do we? So now how do we get to them? So this is what we'd like to do. We have paper flyers that we'd like to get out to the community, and we're gonna have to do it through the mail, and we need resources for it. But we have to keep working with our seniors because we're all getting there, right? At one point or other in our life, so we don't wanna leave them behind. They have a lot of questions were for health. You know, how do we get, and transportation, how do we get here, how do we get there? So we have to help them along the way. And we really only have WeCab and Southwest Transit. So they don't always connect, but we're still working on it. So yeah, and it's very useful to go to donuts in Victoria because I try to encourage a lot of the seniors to come if they can.
Great.
And be sure and get a resource guide because you'll know what we're talking about and what we've done. Okay?
Thank you. And I'll be at Donuts on Victoria tomorrow morning. So, yeah. So thank you for the good work that you are doing, and we stay very in touch with what's happening and through the staff contact. Council, any questions for these ladies on the senior committee?
More of a comment. Great job again on awareness, creativity. You mentioned you're at the pop-up events, the local. That's excellent. So great job.
Sure, and I have one. Lots of good information in it. Not only, it's not just for seniors.
Yeah, it is a statewide example, and we're so very proud of that. So
I'm interested too in you pursuing the communication with the utility bills as well. I don't know the ins and outs and how that all gets done, but can't wait to hear more.
very good. Anything else?
The only comment I'd say is that I think that I share the rest of council's opinion that you guys have done an amazing job. There was a time when we had a senior committee that was then disbanded and then brought back, and it just came back with a vengeance. And you guys have just done an amazing job. And thank you for also bringing to mention the new furniture going to the recreation center. I was going to pull that off the consent agenda just so that we could talk about the great job that staff has done with the collaboration between council, having our workshop out there and hearing the voice of the community saying, hey, this would really be something that would be well received. And then, kudos to Jenna and her team for being able to bring that $10,000 under budget. That's a huge thing. So thank you for all of that collaboration. It just shows that when we work together, we can do great things in the city of Victoria. So thanks.
Very good. All right, anything else? All right, this is for informational purposes only, so there's no action required by the council on this item. So the next item is 6.2, which is the mid-year report from our Park and Rec Committee. Presenting on that this evening is our Park and Rec Committee Chair, Larry Schultz. Chair Schultz, welcome. How many years is this as chair of the Park and Rec Committee for you?
Maybe 6, maybe.
We appreciate your durability.
Thank you. Pretty soon I'll be in the senior group, right?
Right. There's always room for you there too,
Right.
Larry.
Well, good evening. Several things I want to talk about as an update. First of all, one of our major areas of focus has been on how do we engage the public in our Parks and Rec decision making. And to that end, staff put together a policy for us to review on different levels of engagement for our public, which we reviewed, passed on to the council, and I know that you adopted that process. So that's very helpful. We've actually begun that. We had 3 engagement events during the year where we used a new pop-up trailer. Is that what we call that? Okay. And we were at Hunters Brook, a new park area, and Marsh Howell. And we also did one in Lions Park for the trail system. I was pleasantly surprised at the 2 park locations where we had maybe 60 to 70 people at each one. A lot of those people are new to, in those areas, are new to Victoria, and they had a lot of good ideas of what they'd like to have in the parks in that area. And I think the value of parks, I'm going to give you a couple examples of what I observed at those meetings. Families came, but a lot of people are meeting each other for the first time, being new to the community. And I remember one family just had a newborn, and another one was there and said, oh, my daughter could babysit if you get older, and there was a connection right there. And people getting together, they had no other reason to get together other than they happened to be in a park talking about things they'd like to have. At that same event, 3 women were there, and each of them had moved to Victoria within the last 6 months at different periods in time, hadn't met before. They were there the whole hour visiting with each other, connections in the community, new friends they have to welcome, to feel part of people going through the same thing coming to our community, and us encouraging them to be part of the community by giving us their input. We also put out a survey to our residents about the entire community and what they like to see in these parks. And we received 620 responses, which is absolutely amazing from places I've lived before. If you could get that sort of response, that's very helpful for input. We are going to be reviewing the results of that survey at our meeting next Monday night. Our other area of focus has been on looking at the parks that we do have. And part of that was looking at non-traditional parks. And those are ones that aren't developed. And what are some ideas we could use for that? And we reviewed each park and came up with various ideas, some of them like picnic tables, fishing pier, items like that, for getting people to go there at picnic tables and things as part of the connection to the bike trail. One of the other things that we looked at is staff put together a list of all the amenities we have in our current parks. You know, what do we have? What are we missing? And we had a good discussion about that. Came up with a list of things that we don't have, and some of the examples, some of the ideas, sand volleyball pit, obstacle course, to name just a few of the items. Disc golf was another one. Biggest one was a water feature of some sort. Seems like that came up in our earlier survey this year. It seems like a water feature and trails are the top two topics that we hear most about. Speaking of trails, we had some discussion on that, and that continues to be a thing in our community that people are interested in. We've taken steps to try to better communicate how we're going about trails with the city's policy of kind of focusing on new developments and taking advantage of new road construction and putting paths in there, because we all know that it's not cheap to put in trails, as we found out. And most people, I don't think, understand the cost involved of fixing existing trail gaps. So to the extent that we can avoid having future trail gaps by taking advantage of our new projects and developments, we're going to be better off overall. So we're continuing to look at that. We'll continue to put the list of priorities on those trails as well. There's also an emphasis this year on maintaining the trails that we have, because it doesn't do any good if we let those go, because it becomes more expensive if we don't take care of the ones that we already have. Same with playground equipment. One of the other things that we did this first half of the year was we focused on the ordinances that affect Parks and Rec and reviewed those. We've also taken a look at review of the Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan, which seems to be going well in preserving some of our beautiful trees in our community. So those are probably some of the main areas of focus. We also reviewed some of the plats that are coming out as far as trails and parks, or fees in lieu of parkland, and we passed those recommendations on to the council. I thank you for your ongoing support of our parks and rec in our community. I think that a lot of communities would be jealous of having the parks that we do have. I would say that as we're growing as a community, as we're adding parks, that when you look at, I know this next year planning is done and budgets approved, but as we move forward and you start thinking about 2027 and beyond, I believe with all the new parks we're adding and repairs to some of the things that we do in our parks, we're going to need some significant investment at some point in time to continue to be able to boast Victoria, the city of lakes and parks. So just keep that in mind. And I think same with probably Probably be extra expenses on operating expenses too, as we have more parks for maintenance and staff time, et cetera. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'd like to thank Jenna Smith for her outstanding work to keep us organized and on task. So with that, thank you again. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Chair Schultz. We appreciate the good work that you guys are doing. Any questions, comments for Chair Schultz from the council? All right, seeing none, keep up the good work. We have one final update this evening, and that is from the Planning Commission. And we have Vice Chair Eric Ream here this evening to share an update from the Planning Commission. Vice Chair Ream, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, staff that have helped out on this. I'm going to go through kind of a high level and then go through some of the details. So what our work is really to do is to provide recommendations to the City Council on all plats, preliminary plats, variances, conditional use permits, and those things related to city planning and land use. As part of that, we're also looking at reviewing ordinances for potential amendments or changes. We're continuing to look globally at the zoning code itself and have made some headway in that. We are reviewing those sections with recommendations for you to consider. We're also monitoring different things that are related to legislation, so the missing middle housing legislation, other city-related planning legislation at the state, and then the comp plan that's going to be coming up. So we're starting to think about how these actions, the changes to the zoning code and the ordinances are going to play in to potentially support those ventures down the line. And then, of course, supporting some of the primary projects that are of interest to the council, including Downtown West and the South Growth areas. So what have we actually done over the past few months? It's been 4 sketch plats, 2 preliminary plats, an annexation, 1 site plan and building material review, 3 variances, 3 conditional use permits, 2 comprehensive plan amendments, 2 rezoning and plan use developments, as well as 2 ordinances. We've held 6 public hearings during that time. And just to give some context for the zoning, we've gone through 6 of these with staff, and that is related to updating our zoning ordinances. There's about 130 pages, and I believe we have 3 left to get ready before we present that forward. And then, some of the notable things that we've been doing throughout the community and the activities that have gone on. So West Creek Village, the shores of Marsh Lake, second, the Bell Maple Farms, Victoria Gateway. We're just, the city is growing, and we are seeing a lot of that come before us over, the past few months. So with that, that's really what we've done. It's awesome to be on this commission and to be working with the staff and looking at how the city is going to be growing into the future. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Ream. We appreciate the good work that you do. Heavy lifting, lots of, you guys are digging into the details for us, and we so appreciate that work that you do. Council, questions, comments for Vice Chair Ream this evening?
I'll just throw a quick plug for you guys. Like, a couple of the members of the council have sat in your chairs in prior service to the city, so can't say thanks enough, and just the valuable service that you bring. Like the mayor said, digging through the details, doing the heavy lifting, so that by the time it reaches council for determination on where we go, I personally take a lot of pride in knowing that you guys have council's back on this and have done the yeoman's work that it takes for us to make decisions off of good information. So thank you.
So on behalf of the commission, I appreciate that and hearing that. And again, I would pass it back to the staff. The staff is awesome.
We do have
in
awesome
preparing
staff
for us the information in a digestible way. So it's a team effort for sure.
Great team.
I appreciate that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
All right.
I have a question of Tim.
We aren't taking questions. If you guys want to carry,
When people ask questions to the other two speakers,
that's for council discussion. It's for council discussion. So
not getting away with this.
there's no more discussion on this item this evening, so we aren't taking any action, so we're moving on. And the next item is 6.4, which is an update on system statements from the Metropolitan Council. Joining us this evening, we have our Metropolitan Council sector representative, our Metropolitan Council member Deb Barber, who's acting chair of the Met Council currently, and Mackenzie Young-Phillips? Young Walters, I'm sorry. Thank you. So while you guys get settled, we're going to have the staff kick us off on this evening. Mr. McCann, is that you?
Sure, Mayor.
Oh.
That would be me. Yes, so we have recently received the system statement updates from the Metropolitan Council as we start looking towards our 2050 comprehensive plan cycle. And I will pass it over to Deb and Mackenzie to cover the important details.
Ms. Barber, please.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me here tonight. I have been on Metropolitan Council for a little while now. I was first appointed by Governor Dayton in 2015 and then reappointed twice by Governor Walz. And as the mayor mentioned, I was recently put into a position of interim chair about a month now. So I still, obviously, we have great people here to help with District 4, and you guys will always have my fondness for sure. And any questions, you can always reach out. District 4 itself is most of Scott and Carver County. It's all of the cities within those jurisdictions except for the cities of Chanhassen and Savage. So all told, it's 38 communities. It's 2 counties, 16 cities, and 20 townships. It's a very big geographic district. And that's why one of the ways council is divided up. There are 16 geographic representatives who are appointed by the governor, and then there's a chair that serves at large. And it's those groups that work and come out and try and connect with our local communities, bring information back, connect you with the right resources, and all of that. Just want to do a quick little.
There might be a switch on the side to turn it on.
Got to be smarter than the remote. Yeah. All right. So a little history about what we are. So the council was established by the Minnesota legislature in 1967. And to quote, it was in response to rapid and fragmented development, state legislators created the council to coordinate the orderly and economic development of the 7-county metropolitan region. As they talked about it, they were talking about really finding a way to balance regional and local interests. When I look at it, they were looking at things that cross boundaries. So if you look at our wastewater system or some of our transportation systems, obviously there are local decisions. We think that's very important, but there are some things that we do better when we look at it and step back and look at it as a whole region. With that, we have roles in planning and roles in operations. Our primary things are as we manage the regional wastewater system, we operate Metro Transit's bus and rail system. We issue rental assistance. That's one of the things. We are the HRA for Carver County, and that's a big role for that we help to support local governments by taking on that role. We draft long-range plans, including the regional policy, which is part of what we're here to talk about today, and we also help with maintaining the regional park system. We have planning in 3 regional systems, which is wastewater, transportation, and parks. So as we go through the planning cycle, when we do our overall 10-year plan, we do system plans for each of those. So when you're looking at your comp plan amendments and you're looking if something complies or is consistent, are they consistent with all these other plans? And that's how those things tie together. We work in the development of housing, land use, and climate policy to help guide development. There are many things, like for example, if you look at climate, it wasn't part of comprehensive planning previously, but the legislature has included it. So our job is to make and provide tools so to make it easier for local governments to be able to do that kind of work. And Mackenzie will talk a little bit more about that. We create a regional development guide every 10 years. That is by state statute. And we serve as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is basically from the federal government. When they look at how transportation and transit funding, they're looking at the MPO. And that's one of the roles that we serve. Key role with that is the regional solicitation, which is transportation funding allocation from the federal government. We've had some conversations about that out here. We're able to get some money to the area, but that is a key role because that money comes into what's called the Transportation Advisory Board, and then that is a 34 board member, a bunch of mix of elected and appointed officials that look at how are you going to distribute that money. And one of the things that we look at are these policy plans, but we always look at geography to make sure there's some balance with it. And then we also, like I said, provide transit and wastewater services. Our role in overall planning is this 10-year cycle. So if you look up at number 1, everything kicks off with the census. So as we know, we have a census every 10 years. That translates over to the Regional Development Guide. Many of you probably have heard of Thrive 2040. That is what you built the comprehensive plan that you were working under Thrive 2040. The new version of that we're working on, that we approved actually, was the Imagine 2050. And that's what we're here to talk about today, talk about some of the differences, some of the changes, even some of the new tools. Because when we released the Regional Development Guide, we also released at the same time all the system plans. It's kind of nice, everything came together all at one time. Everybody sort of knows what the playing field is, what the kind of vision for the region is. But the next step is the piece that we're gonna get into a little more detail is the system statements. So the next thing is that will feed into your comprehensive planning cycle. How all that works, and the way that I like to think about it is people ask, how do we plan, how we build, what do we do when we're looking at the regional wastewater system or the transit system? We actually look at your comprehensive plans and figure out where we build. So where should we plan, where should we invest, where should we go first? It's very, very efficient. Like, take example for our wastewater system. It's one of the most efficient in the entire country because we do it that way. And what's the end benefit is that we have very low wastewater rates. So there are a number of things that work very well. I will never say everything's perfect. I've done this too long and know better than that. But there can be a big asset to our region because we look at planning in this way. And I'm going to turn it over to Mackenzie to kind of dive a little more deeply into the next steps with local planning.
Very good. Welcome. Mr. Young-Walters, please.
Thank you very much. So one of the things that tends to generate a lot of discussion as a portion of the Regional Development Guide are the low regional forecasts. That's something that we do. It's a big part of the 10-year update, and it tends to be what communities end up basing a lot of their land use planning on. Essentially, the council looks at the census data, and then we have a model that projects where we expect growth to occur in the region and how much growth will occur. We do, as we mentioned, it's an iterative process. So part of that is looking at your community's land use plan, where you've assigned different lands, and then areas that communities have available to grow. This is not just us coming up with numbers. There are a lot of conversations. We produced a draft forecast, which I think you all saw late last year, early this year. We work with city staff to adjust those if there's local factors we aren't aware of. And we also do adjust them continually whenever you amend the comprehensive plan to up-guide or down-guide a land use. We look and see whether or not that would necessitate a forecast change on our part. So it's a continually evolving feedback loop to try to get it as close as possible. Victoria's long-range forecast, looking out to the 2050 period, is continued rapid growth between 2030 and 2050. About another 6,700 people are projected to be added to the city. A lot of the numbers come down to, we look at observed trends. We see a lot of development happening in Victoria. We see a lot of open land available in Victoria, and that leads to a pretty high growth projection for the area. Based on the population forecasts, we then look at the amount of affordable housing that is projected to be needed in the region. And based on relative growth, as well as some other factors like naturally occurring affordable housing, we assign each community an allocated share of the region's affordable housing that we ask them to provide land at high enough density to allow the construction of those units potentially in the future. As mentioned, we are a wastewater organization, so of course we also forecast out the Seward population so that we can make sure we're appropriately sizing our system. Speaking on the wastewater system, the vast majority of Victoria is within the municipal urban services area. The only portion that isn't is the Carver Park Reserve, where obviously we're not planning on seeing a lot of residential or commercial development. You will also notice that the area of Laketown Township that is under the city's orderly annexation agreement is also part of the, I know it says 2040 MUSA there, my apologies, should be 2050 MUSA, but that's areas where we expect that in the next several decades, based on the 2040 comprehensive plan, that Victoria would potentially be expanding and engaging in residential sewer development. One of the other things the Regional Development Guide does is it groups communities with similar characteristics into community designations. And based on these community designations, different regional policies come into play. Victoria is almost entirely a suburban edge community. Again, there is the Carver Park Reserve, which is diversified rural, again, reflecting the fact that that's not an area where development is anticipated to occur. Probably the most important policy that affects the community designation is the council's density policy. When we first began talking about Imagine 2050, suburban edge communities were proposed to be have a required net residential density of 4 units an acre based on the feedback the council received from communities throughout the region, including Victoria. That was reevaluated, and the Metropolitan Council voted to change that to 3.5 units per acre. So we did listen very seriously to the concerns that were raised, and we adjusted density policy to try to reflect and address those concerns. I should mention that when we talk about the future net residential density, this doesn't mean that every development in Victoria is expected to be 3.5 units per acre. It's that the balance of all the developments, the high density developments in the town center, the conservation residential that might go on in sensitive ecological areas, are expected to average out each decade to be that 3.5. To provide a little bit of context, I pulled the plat data for the city for the last 10 years, and your average platted density over that period was around 4.3 units an acre. So you're already approving stuff, well in excess of this, just to provide a little framework for those numbers. That being said, we did all of these numbers and things are detailed in the system statements that you received. The system statements are the individualized report for the City of Victoria. They contain the forecast, the community designation, as well as a high-level discussion of the regional policies from that regional development guide that intersect with the city. And we are required by the state statute to submit these to the cities. In 3 months, when they become fully final, that starts the 3-year clock for the comprehensive plan update, so the 2050 comp plan. You all know a lot about it. The comp plan is the high-level visioning document for the community and a high-level policy document. It's designed to provide a framework to help guide decision makings, as well as create expectations for the community to signal where and how it plans to grow into the future. As your Planning Commission Vice Chair mentioned, your zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinances all are required to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So there's always a lot of work reconciling those two every time you have a comprehensive plan update. In order to assist communities in navigating the comprehensive planning process, because we do recognize it's very difficult to be experts at something that you only have to do once every 10 years, we have a local planning handbook that's basically a one-stop shop for comprehensive planning. It has an individualized checklist of minimum requirements for communities where we've went through the system statements, went through the regional development guide, and highlighted every policy that can apply to the city and let staff know, your staff know exactly what they need to do to meet those requirements. Philosophically, we've tried very hard to pair every policy requirement with a resource so that it's very clear what we're asking for and how it can be done. Whenever we have the data available, we want to provide it to you. We don't want you to have to work and expend resources creating data that we already have or that we can assemble, and we'll talk about some of that as we move on. There's also a lot of other supplemental resources just to increase general background knowledge and help folks understand the why behind some of the requirements. With regards to the water resources, this year we have a detailed how-to guide for completing the water section of the plan. That's necessitated because the water section touches many different agencies. The surface water management plan will need to be done in coordination with the local watersheds and water management organizations, groundwater appropriations with the DNR, and so we really wanted to create a guide and templates to help communities coordinate all of those different moving parts and make it as streamlined and painless as possible. Transportation has created specific resources for all of their sub-elements, especially the new bike and pedestrian stuff that communities may be a little less familiar with than the things that were present in the last cycle, as well as some resources for communities that are looking to do some of the extra things and do more in-depth planning than is required by the bare minimums of regional policy. One thing we're really excited about is one of the new requirements this time around is the natural resources component. Recognizing that we did not want to place a burden on communities, what we did was we assembled a GIS map with all of the major natural systems that were present in all of the different communities in the region. How we've set this up is it has exactly what you need to meet the minimum requirement. Now, we understand a lot of communities will have information that goes well beyond ours. You can download the shapefile, you can add your own database, you can add information that shows features that our high-level data doesn't have. But what you're looking at right there is actually City of Victoria's basic natural resources map that would meet our requirements. And we have a bunch of different tools that can go through. They also explain all of the different minimum requirements, how they relate. It's a really useful interactive tool that we think is really going to minimize the amount of data collection that's needed from communities and free you up to do the visioning and policy making that you're uniquely suited to do. Similarly, we did receive a lot of concerns about the new greenhouse gas reduction criteria. Communities were very concerned about how they would generate the data that's required under state statute. For every community, we have broken down the emissions for every one of the statutory required sectors. And you can see Victoria's are up here. And then we also created a tool where you can go in, and so I pulled up residential, and we have a bunch of different strategies that you can play around with. So one might be more energy efficient housing, electrification of existing houses. I can't remember all of them, but we have many different strategies, and you can pick on a slider, what percentage you'd like to shoot for, when you'd like to implement it, and then that graph on there actually shoots out the impact that would have on the community's greenhouse gas emissions over the planning period. Again, the idea was that the community should not be responsible for creating this database, for creating that type of in-depth analysis that you probably don't have the in-house technical expertise to do, but you should be free to figure out what strategies work best for you and identify the ones that you want to implement and the extent that you want to implement. Again, the idea is the communities are the best suited for the visioning and policy in these regards. So we're providing the data and giving you free reign with it. This can also be downloaded and modified if you do have internal data that's better than ours. We strongly encourage you to use that, but again, we've provided the baseline. Similarly, because we know that a bunch of different communities have different levels of resources when it comes to climate adaptations, we have a climate action toolkit we've created. Something we're really proud of is we're trying to link the different actions that are potential actions to the different types of community designations, whether it's an urban community, a suburban community, or a rural community, recognizing that an action that makes a lot of sense in Minneapolis might not work as well in Carver County. And so we really want to equip staff and city councils to look through these, identify actions that they say, yeah, this could really work here, and pick those and move them or modify them as they need. We're also flagging the amount of effort we believe, so it's easier for council to say, oh, this is a low-hanging fruit, or oh, this would actually require a lot more sustained effort on our part. And so we're really going to be building this out. These will be coming online throughout the coming year, and we'll be communicating with your staff as these resources are fully fleshed out. The last thing I wanted to touch on is Planet. This is something we did last year. It's a very large archive of trainings, resources. It's also workshops and conferences we hold to provide that direct technical assistance to help you and your staff navigate the comprehensive planning process. And that concludes my prepared remarks.
Very good. Thank you so much. Ms. Barber, you have something to add?
I do, thank you so much. I fully, we've gotten a chance to play with some of these online tools, and they are amazing. And I think when I came on in 2015, that was the last round of comprehensive planning, and that local planning handbook and the online tools that provided was like a game changer as I was going out and talking to communities. Even now, you can go out and there's community profile pages. You can look at your community, local communities, neighbors, all of that, which I think one thing we're really, really good at is data and maps and information and tools. And we're trying it, especially with the improvements in technology, to make this easier for all the communities. I think Mackenzie said it well, is to allow, when you look at Imagine 2050, it was council's vision and kind of our run at what we thought the regional plan should look like. This should free you guys up to be able to do that on a local basis, which I think is, really, really a great opportunity to figure out what do you want the community to be as you grow and expand. I don't see you not growing in the near future, so I think it's really important to do that. But it's a great opportunity to use our resources and tools for the data part, and focus on the vision of what you want to be. As I mentioned, because I am serving as interim chair, even though I've been district rep for a long time, I want to introduce both of you. You've talked to Mackenzie, but we've also got Michael Sund here. He is our community relations person. So if you can't get hold of me over the next little while, these two will take good care of you, and I know they will because they are always the ones who provide all the information for me. And so I definitely know that we sent out notes to everybody, so hopefully you all got it and have their contact info, so they also know where to find me. So if we need to elevate something, you know where I'm at. But I just wanted to take a minute and just say again, thank you for having us out. We're more than happy to come out even as you're doing the comprehensive planning process and all of that. And with that, would you say, do you have any questions for us?
I want to say thank you for these planning tools. This is a big lift for us here in Victoria. We're a small staff and we're already pretty strapped for time. So any tools and assistance along the way is much appreciated. Council, questions or comments for this group from the Metropolitan Council? All right, seeing none, there was nothing to decide on that. This was informational only, so thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you all.
All right, the final item on our regular agenda this evening is item 6.5, which is regarding the proposed R1A Old Town Residential Zoning District. Before I turn this over to the staff to present this item, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that the city is in receipt of the updated petition, and we'll make sure that that updated petition is scanned into our records. And I also want our community to know that the City Council has had an opportunity to review the petition and the public comments related to the proposed new zoning district, included listening to the comments made during the public hearing at the Planning Commission. We've reviewed emails received from community members as well. We will not be taking additional public comments on this topic at this time. This is Council's time to discuss. However, I'll ask that our staff retain the petition as part of the record, which we have, and it will be included in the agenda packet, which will be found in the binder, which will be included in the public records online. I'm looking to City Administrator to make sure that that's all accurate. All right. So we've received a lot of these questions and comments that we've seen circulating. Many of them will be addressed this evening in the presentation. So with that, I want to turn this over to our Associate Planner, Travis Brierly. Mr. Brierly, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Tonight we are looking at R1A zoning district, proposed zoning district. Just a quick background on it. We've titled it Old Town Residential. It's an alternate solution to a zoning amendment that was submitted earlier this year which would have affected all of our R1 or all of our single-family zoning. We did hold a public hearing on October 7th, which was last week at the Planning Commission meeting. A postcard notice was sent out to all the residents affected by the R1A zoning, as well as all properties within 350 feet, and was also published in the paper, all in accordance with statute. Because this because this proposed zoning is not being done by an application by a resident, there's no 60-day rule. This is council direction to see if it would work. Just quickly touching on what an R1A zoning district would be. R1A is you take your R1 and basically all you're doing is you're going to modify it slightly or deviate from it a little bit to meet specific goals and specific purposes. The intent is not to create a brand new zoning district that is wildly different from our current low density zoning districts. Deviations typically are for the types of housing, setbacks, dimensional standards, performance standards, and that's all done with inside a limited scope. The goals of the R1A district is to focus on infill redevelopment. This is generally going to be 1 or 2 properties at a time, and it's market driven. We're looking at the principal structure being the focus of the property, so we don't have large accessory structures that are attached, detracting from a single family home, and establishing reasonable design standards, such as making sure it's compatible with the existing homes in the neighborhood. The other thing that the zoning looks to do is mitigate any adverse effects of redevelopment on the existing property, keeping with a similar character to the neighborhood as it is today. During the public hearing, we had 11 persons who presented comments. Prior to that, we had 6 email comments that were sent to city staff, as well as a number of post-public hearing emails which have come in the last week. A petition was brought to the to the Planning Commission meeting, which staff had accepted, in addition to the one that was submitted tonight. Concerns that were raised were the effect on reduced lot dimensions, duplexes and twin homes, multifamily, which is 3 or more units for residential properties becoming rentals, historical character and charm, and the effect on property values and taxes. To touch on those real quickly, multifamily is not a proposed permitted use. In addition to that, properties are allowed to be, any property owner can currently right now put their property up as a rental property within the R1 zoning. The design standards are to protect the historical character, so nothing gets built that could be seemed out of place, and the effect on the property values and taxes. I did reach out to the county residential assessor and had that discussion, and she feels there wouldn't be any direct effect if it was just a parcel here and there throughout, affecting the values of different properties. Like I said, multifamilies the prohibited housing includes the multifamily, so that's your traditional type of apartments, triplexes and bigger, trailer homes and trailer parks, RV parks, tiny homes, row houses, which are single family homes that are all in a row. If you think of like San Francisco or Brooklyn, you got a bunch of homes in a row. They're all individual homes. They could share a wall, they could not, but they're all in a row. And then townhomes as well, which is a single structure containing multiple residential units.
Mr. Brierly, back on this slide here, this is prohibited housing, so you could have a duplex, so 2 units, but no more than that.
Correct.
In this zoning.
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
One of the things that we look at as we go through the proposed zoning is we have to look back into our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan is the high-level policy document which guides any type of zoning decisions that we would make with our zoning code. The zoning code as well as the comprehensive plan need to be in alignment with each other as far as what would be permitted and what wouldn't be permitted and things in that. This is still a low-density residential district where we're looking at the average density range between 2.25 and 6 units an acre. Now, the document also, or our comp plan also says that that'd be single-family homes, duplexes, as well as twin homes would be the type of housing we would want to see in our low-density districts. When we were looking at the area of where the R1A would be, when we were looking at the feasibility of it, we took a look at the older part of the community. This is south of Highway 5 going down to Lions Park, and then east and west off Victoria Drive. And the type of subdivisions that you see up here, the dates are the dates of when the subdivision was approved by the city. So they go all the way back to 1914. as recently as the mid to late 70s is the area that this zoning would target. To simplify that, all the blue on the screen are the residential properties that are being proposed for the R1A. Like I said, it stretches down Alliance Park and to Highway 5, so it does not come into our downtown area. Those would be two separate zoning districts. We look primarily at the bulk standards of what could change, and right now our current single family, or R1, requires a 12,000 square foot minimum lot size that's 80 feet wide and 130 feet deep, with setbacks of 30 feet for the front and rear yard, as well as a 10-foot setback for the side yard. In the proposed R1A, we'd be looking at going from a 12,000 square foot minimum to 9,100 square feet minimum for a single family property. Based on that, you're looking at a density change going from 3.6 units an acres to about 4.8. Both are within our comp plan ranges. The other thing that staff looked at was, as far as redevelopment would go, is lot widths and looking at sightline distances and trying to maintain the character with the proposed R1A having a variety of lot widths and lot depths. It's proposed to be 75 feet on corner properties and 65 feet for the interior properties, as well as reducing the minimum depth of a property from 130 to 110 feet, as well as reducing the front and rear setbacks from 30 feet to 5 feet. The one thing that wouldn't be changed would be the minimum side yard setbacks of 10 feet, so you still have appropriate separation within our low density districts that we currently see and that we see in other areas of the city as those redevelop. The two items that we did add were twin homes, which would average out to be about 3 units an acre. And what a twin home is it's two single-family homes with a shared wall. They're on two separate parcels themselves. And then duplexes would be 2 residential units on a single property, and that would have a density of about 6 units an acre would be there. So if properties get larger, that density goes down. Staff did take a look at the neighborhood, or at the proposed area, and did lot sizes and took a description. There is a map that was printed out and handed out to the city council tonight for your reference as well. What we're looking at here is the proposed area is split by the Shoreland District. Through the center of the screen, you'll notice that there is a blue line. That's where the Shoreland District ends. From that line going west is underneath the shoreline and has specific overlay regulations. We'll notice that the properties on here, there's some black parcels, there's some red parcels, and then there's some yellow and some green. The yellow, or the black and the red parcels, would continue to be legal non-conforming, even with the smaller lot sizes that are being proposed. We're looking at the yellow parcels would become conforming with the proposed regulations, at least on lots or on minimum square footage. And then the green and blue parcels are the parcels that are currently conforming, at least to the minimum standard of square footage of the property. I would like to note that when we talk about duplexes, duplexes could be in the blue, but unfortunately to the west part of the shoreland, there'd only be one property that'd be large enough to be able to do that, because the shoreland requires higher numbers, such as 26,000 square feet, to allow for duplexes. There would be one property that would meet the dimensional standards currently that could do twin homes. And then the other properties that you see that are in red, those properties could be subdivided into 2 single-family homes. And then within the district, on the southern yellow highlighted parcel, that is currently a duplex. And then we have a 12-unit apartment building on the north side. When we look at the principal uses that we want to lay out, these are the same as the R1, except for the addition of twin homes and duplexes. So single-family homes still can be constructed, they can be reconstructed, and we can continue on with the type of housing that we have in the area. We also look at residential group homes, which is underneath a statute requirement, municipal facilities and city parks, places of worship, as well as utility services. When we look at the current standards of the R1 versus the R1A, when we look at permitted housing, again, single families permitted currently, and with the R1A, that would be expanded to be single family, twin homes, and duplexes. Lot size and dimensions would be reduced slightly to accommodate a slightly higher density, as well as allow for smaller parcels to be redeveloped as homes age and as the community continues to develop over the next 5 to 20 years. One of the things that the R1A does propose that the R1 does not is the housing scale, size, proportions, and character that fall underneath the design standards. With that, if a property in the current proposed R18 district wanted to demolish a single-family home and rebuild it, the size restrictions would be limited to height and impervious cover and could be out of place to the neighborhood. So you could have smaller homes and then take down one of those homes and rebuild a 3-story, 35-foot home right next to a Rambler or one-level home with a basement, which would defeat the purpose of keeping the character in staff's opinions. We also took a look at setbacks. Right now, the current setbacks for the front and the rear are 30 feet, and the proposal is to do it down to 25. And the main reason for that is to allow for the smaller parcels to have better redevelopment opportunities and to get a little bit more flexibility. It's not a significant amount, but it can make the difference between putting in a 3-bedroom home versus a 2-bedroom home. When we look at design standards, all the design standards are written to support and encourage redevelopment while maintaining that character. So every standard we look at is trying to stay with the type of housing that we have currently in the proposed R1A and not create something that would be really modern or really out of place or anything of that type of nature. So couple of the standards that go in there is the relationship to adjacent buildings. We would encourage anybody who redevelops a property to stay adjacent with the front yard setback as well as rear yard setbacks if possible. Within the proposed zoning district, we have front yard setbacks of anywhere between homes being at 20 feet as well as them being back to 40 feet and so on. So we'd want to kind of keep that balance so when you do look down the road, it looks like a neighborhood, it feels like a neighborhood, it doesn't feel like things are out of place. We also would want to make sure that primary entrances face the street. The homes that are within the proposed R1A currently do face the street. A lot of homes that have detached garages have separate entrances on the side of the home that faces the detached garage as well as the front door. But we want to make sure that if that's the case for redevelopment, we want to continue that type of design. The other thing we look at is a 15% windows facing the street. The intention behind that is so that you don't have just a blank wall facing the street. We can keep with that traditional design where you have a larger window near your family room, which traditionally can be towards the front of the house or near the entrance. Building materials and architectural design, that again goes back to looking at when the design of the building comes forward that it's similar to what's in the neighborhood. There's still some creativity that could be done, but that'd be very limited in scope. We just don't want to infringe on anybody's right of free speech or anything like that, but we still want to keep that character. And the other thing that I talked about was the sitting of the principal structure. That goes to where that setback is, as well as lining things up. When we look at the bulk standards for our accessory uses, the accessory uses are the same as the R1 that's currently in place. Staff didn't make any changes to the setbacks as well as the size or any of those performance standards. When we do look at accessory structures, there is a limit of attached and detached. So an attached garage or a detached garage and a shed or what have you, you're limited to 2. The other thing that we want to do is keep the focus on the home itself. So with that, the footprint of your accessory structures, whether attached or detached, can't be greater than the footprint of the principal structure, the home, keeping that focus there. While also limiting it up to the 900 square feet, which was proposed by the Planning Commission, which would be in line with our permitted detached accessory structure size currently in our R1. The other thing that we want to do is make sure that the height of an accessory structure isn't greater than the principal structure. And that goes back to the focus being on the single family home and not on having an oversized garage next to a property where the garage is what catches your eye instead of the beautiful home. There are conditional use that are proposed. One is accessory dwellings. Accessory dwellings is what you can think of as kind of like your mother-in-law suite, or if you have multi-generational families, a separate living area that's either attached or detached from the home. They do count towards your total impervious as well as your accessory structure footprint if they're detached and must meet those setback requirements. In addition, off-street parking would be required if you want to do an ADU. That way we don't have multiple vehicles on the street. There's an off-street parking spot for them. Daycare facilities as well would be a conditional use permit. The main purpose behind this is that employees are not parking on the street, taking up space from other residents, being able to enjoy that type of parking, as well as making sure that play equipment is constructed behind the home, not to detract from the curb appeal of the home, and make sure that none of that type of stuff is placed within an easement, which could cause issues in the future. As we stated in the beginning, there's a lot of comments that were brought forward to the Planning Commission as well as in emails and from there, and I just kind of want to run over a couple of the ideas and some of the information that might have been misstated out into the community. The first thing is if there's going to be Section 8, there's no Section 8 planned, nor is there any Section 8 proposed within any part of Victoria, especially within the R1A district. Another concern that was brought forward is trailer homes. Trailer homes are not proposed to be permitted, nor were they ever something that staff was going to bring forward to the Planning Commission or the City Council requesting for permitted. We currently don't have a zoning district which would allow a mobile home, and there's no intention by staff to bring any proposals similar to that forward. Another concern was losing property. Part of this, I believe, was back to defining what a setback is. A setback is the distance between your property line and where you can place a structure. It doesn't actually adjust your property line. It just says what that distance is, and I think there was some confusion of what that term means and how it would affect. It would actually allow you to use more or put structures closer to your front and rear property lines compared to the current regulations, and that's only a difference of 5 feet. Twin homes and duplexes, the only permitted uses, was another comment that staff had become aware of. No, single-family homes are definitely permitted. It's something that can be rebuilt, and part of redevelopment. Any single-family homes that currently exist that wanted to convert to a duplex would be able to do so if they met the performance standards for it, which in this case, there's a limited scope to where those properties could be. As far as redevelopment to twin homes and multifamily, there's a cost-benefit ratio that needs to be made by anybody or by a developer. If they came in to even redevelop one property, the cost-benefit ratio is pretty, there's a thin margin there. So it's unlikely that a developer would come in and remove a single-family home to build a duplex on most of the properties, especially not twin homes. The other question that came up is, could multifamily apartments be built? No. 3 units or greater would not be permitted. There were comments made at the public hearing regarding apartment buildings within our downtown area. Any type of building even close to that wouldn't even be permitted. So 2 units is all you could have on a property. So you could do a single family home, you could add an ADU, you could do a twin home, or you could do a duplex. So those are our minimum standards. But apartments, no additional apartments would be allowed. There is the 12 unit that currently exists. That's a legal non-conforming property and will continue to be able to stay within that classification and operate as they have. The other thing is the ordinance, will it protect the character of the neighborhood? Absolutely. The design standards are set in place specifically to stop having large homes being built in a neighborhood where it would be different. It would be something that would be out of place. A lot of the homes in the area are 1 story. There are a couple 2-story homes, depending on where you are within the zoning. We wouldn't want to see someone come in, redevelop their property into a 3-story McMansion sitting next to somebody who's been able to enjoy their property with a home similar to the size of their home and yards and everything else. We don't want anything to overpower it, as well as with the design. So the primary focus on that is looking at similar scale, similar size, similar proportions, and a similar character to the neighborhood. Like I said, the biggest thing is focus on the home and try to keep the homes to line up with what is currently existing, but still allow that flexibility in redevelopment. Rental properties, there are comments about not wanting rental properties. The city doesn't currently restrict rental properties in any of our zoning. And in the R1 zoning that currently exists throughout the community, if a homeowner wanted to rent their property, again, they would have that ability to do so without any real city interference. With that, Mayor and Council, I stand for any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Brierley. Council, questions, comments?
I just wanted to clarify a question. On a twin home, this is 2 separate parcels where the 2 units would be joined together, basically sitting on the property line of the 2 parcels?
Councilmember, that is correct.
So today, if somebody to construct a twin home, they would either need to take an existing parcel of sufficient size, cut it in half, divide it, re-subdivide it, and then put a twin home on that property line, correct?
Correct. That would be one of the methods.
Or there would be 2 smaller parcels that would need one would need to be purchased, the other one would need to be purchased to then create a twin home, correct?
Councilmember, that is correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me.
Very good. Anything else, Councilmember Ebansky?
No, right now,
All right.
thank you.
Council, any other questions?
I have a few questions. From the Planning Commission meeting, we determined that there are no plots that would allow a townhouse, or a townhome of 3 or more, correct?
Councilmember, townhomes, as well as any 3 or more unit buildings, so triplexes or greater, would be prohibited to be constructed within the proposed R1A.
And then the information that was put together during that meeting was that there were no parcels that could support a twin home. That's not necessarily true if you were to buy 2 properties, demolish the homes, and then build your twin home on the property line, as Councilman Ebansky just said.
Councilmember, that's correct. I would like to point out that we did have a resident reach out who had us re-examine one parcel. That parcel is in the center of the screen in the pink/purple. That parcel does meet the dimensional standards where it could be subdivided into a twin home. A lot of that's market driven. Single family homes tend to have a higher margin of profit for developers than twin homes. But that would be all based on the market if that would be allowed.
Okay, thank you. And a duplex can basically go in just about any property, is that correct?
Councilmember, duplexes would only be able to, the properties that would be able to fit a duplex are listed in the blue. I would like to reiterate that it's a dark blue on the right side of the screen. On the left side of the screen, you'll see that there's one parcel that's highlighted in orange. That would be the only parcel under the shoreland regulations which would be permitted to have a duplex. The main reason for that is because the shoreland requires a 26,000 minimum square foot size of parcels to build a duplex.
Thank you. For me, the biggest difference between the R1A and the R1 zoning district is 5 feet from your front and rear setbacks, and then a bunch of regulations put into place to stop people from overdeveloping these areas. And then you throw 2 things in there, duplexes and twin homes, which are not allowed in R1 single-family residential areas. Is there any way we can take the duplex and twin home out, redline those 2 things, and move forward with it?
Councilmember, that's an excellent question. That's something that we did look at. And with that, that would create an inconsistency between our low-density residential and our zoning code compared to the 2040 comprehensive plan. And we need to make sure that those 2 items line up with each other, as the Met Council had actually mentioned earlier today.
Well, if we do nothing, it's still going to line up with the 2040 comprehensive plan. So I'm still not totally sure and understand that. So if we change the zone to R1A, we have to align with something that we're currently not aligned with.
Councilmember, that is correct.
Doesn't make sense to me. I guess those would be my questions for now. Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council.
Yeah, Ms. Hardy, please.
If I could just speak to that, to Councilmember Pedersen's question, just for a historical lens, and I think I'm probably the only staff person that was in this room when those discussions were had. So, Councilmember Pedersen, to your question about that not being able to reconcile why we aren't in compliance with our current comp plan requirements, and that is because way back when we adopted the plan, we had adopted the plan with an R2 district. The R2 district no longer exists. And that R2 district was our tool to get us to that, those duplexes, like not necessarily, just a greater density. And so after some review and discussion at the Planning Commission, Council, maybe about 5 years ago, eliminated the R2 district, and we have not had a tool that would allow us through straight zoning to get to that level of density with those two housing types. So this would be one way that we could do that through straight zoning.
This affects just a small amount of homes within the greater Victoria area, and as our Met Council person said, we're already at 4.0, so I don't know. I think everything about it, and you guys have worked your tails off on it, obviously. I'd like everything about it as far as retaining the integrity of the area. I still have a problem with the duplex and twin home aspect of it. Anyway.
I mean, to lever off of Councilmember Pedersen's comments, I'd say that the side yard setbacks coming down are actually really a benefit to this zoning in that we now have give greater flexibility for redevelopment in terms of existing footprints right now are going to keep existing homes more or less in the same size that they are because they probably took advantage of the setbacks to the maximum that they were. By allowing a little bit more breathing room in that, I think we're actually increasing the ability of the value of a parcel in Victoria in these spaces because when these homes reach their periods of functional obsolescence where renovation just doesn't get it, when there needs to be a complete tear down, that's where I think the value add of this side yard setback is remaining the same, but the rear and front yards actually being a benefit of this versus the current structure. And then, and then beyond that, the ability to, keep the accessory structures from, getting sizable out of hand so that we don't have, for instance, a larger lot where somebody wanted to put it, say, up a pole barn, which would be incompatible. There are now design standards to prevent that from happening where there are no design standards today. So I think that those design standards are probably a net increase to, what would otherwise be, a property value question. So, but I do share your concerns about the heartburn about the duplexes and the twin homes. Economically speaking, as Travis points out, probably a difficult hurdle to get over. I don't see somebody with a 14,000 square foot lot that has right now a 4,000 foot single level home selling it to a developer, and a developer says, come on, I'm going to knock this down and turn it into a duplex. Certainly the design standards of staff reviewing it and saying that would not be compatible within the neighborhood would be the safety valve on that. But I think I share concern that we could take this away and figure out a way to either limit those down to a certain percentage or eliminate them altogether. The density question that we have, I understand that. I think we're both viewing the Met Council saying, hey, we want you to have them, but we're already there. So then we can look for other places in the city to keep those density standards to bring us in line with that. So I think we can get some middle ground and compatibility and drive for a solution that addresses our concerns there.
A question for you. When we talked about this initially, for me, the big thing was we didn't want to be caught in this trap where so many other cities were, where they were tearing down smaller homes and then just building right to the edges of every lot, and it just looked ridiculous within a neighborhood. So I feel like this addresses that concern of mine. But if you think about going down County Road 11 and across from the church, there are those considered townhomes or twin homes? Talk a little bit about what that housing is and how it might fit in, because that is are those townhomes?
Mayor and council members, yes.
Rescue here?
Yeah, absolutely. So while Travis pulls up the map here, I know which parcels you're talking about. Those are actually zoned R3. once he pulls up the image here, I believe those are 3-unit buildings, so those would fall under that multifamily category that Travis mentioned earlier. Those are the ones right there, I believe.
And those would not be allowed on, under this,
Correct.
in any of those parts? Okay.
I think for me, the going from R1 to potentially R1A, the big benefit and the lens we're looking through is character. And a lot of the public comment we've heard is about character. Let's be unique and character. I think this accomplishes that. We see in other communities where they are building and overdeveloping properties. It's happening. It's happening all over. I think we can point to 6 areas like that. So this, if you want to use the term, guards against it, protects it. I think ultimately that'll help the value here for the residents.
All right.
I guess.
Councilmember Roberts.
I think I'm leaning towards what Councilmember Ivansky and Pedersen have talked about, right? Like, I think there's a lot of good things here, right? Like, I mean, we're putting in more restrictions, right? We're trying to keep things, you know, we've had people come before us about complaining about, you know, a huge, you know, garage going up. And that's what we don't want in this area. I also have the same concerns with the duplexes and the twin homes. You know, there are, you know, one of the things we talk about in here is, right, keeping the character of the neighborhood. And yes, there's going to be regulations, but just in general, does a duplex or a twin home, is that going to keep the character? But again, like, I agree. Like, I want these standards in here to keep, right? Like, I mean, and I think I've thought about things like, you know, what can we do to promote other things to promote, right? Like, if someone's redeveloping, or someone to, like, instead of, you know, like renovating house, right? Like, you know, can we think about, you know, reducing fees on things if you keep it a certain way, right? Instead of, so I'm very much in favor of the keeping, like, these regulations and these rules to keep things the way they are, but I do have some concerns about the twin homes and the duplexes as well.
Can you talk a little bit more about your concerns? Are you worried about the size? Are you worried about 2 families? Are you worried? And, you know, I'm curious, Councilmember Pedersen as well.
You want to go?
Go ahead.
One, value and perceived value for the current homeowners who live there. You can get whatever answer you want on the internet. You can say Travis says no, it's not going to affect your property value. You can find out that's a concern for me. That's a concern for the residents in that area. I don't believe a twin home or a duplex really fits within the character of the neighborhood, and I think that's my biggest problem. I know we've got an apartment building that sits there right now, and then just off the edge we have the townhouses essentially, but I don't feel that a twin home or a duplex fits within the character. So we do 95% good to keep the character of the neighborhood as we and everybody wants it, with a few new they're not restrictions, but abilities, 5 feet on the yard and a little bit less for impermeable. But now we're going to give you 2 other options to build that really aren't in the area. So that would be, again, that's my problem. I think 90% of it's good. It's that 10% that I struggle with. And I've been struggling with it for 3 days, and I don't know where to go with it. I feel like there's something that we can do to eliminate it. I understand the comp plan. I understand that we're going through a new comp plan. I'm just wondering how we can make everybody, not make everybody happy, but to tweak it so that it makes more people happy.
I don't mind the townhome and the twin home thing, because I think it introduces a housing product that we don't currently have in this part of town. And I feel like there is enough about design standards that would make it feel like they belong. Like they belong there. They're not out of place. They don't look like they moved in. So
That's a good point.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
could I,
Mr. Brierly, please.
could I clarify
Yeah.
your last comment? You said townhomes. Did you mean duplexes and twin homes?
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I did.
Thank you.
for that clarification.
Can you remind us on which is the property, right, that kind of started, right, like that we denied their request for the overall arching zoning, and what, can you point that out?
Absolutely, Councilmember. So on the screen, right in the center is where the mouse is. The parcel that's highlighted in red and blue was the parcel that kind of started us going down this path to look for alternative options. With that being said, one of the proposals that the property owner would like to do, one, take down the home, which they've done, preserve what healthy trees they can, which they've done, and subdivide the property into 2 parcels to build 2 single-family homes. Unfortunately, the parcel square footage is not large enough to be able to do the 2 single-family homes on the subdivision, so that have get denied. Speaking with the property owner as well as a representative of the property, looking at alternative options, we did look at variances. A variance couldn't be granted for this property because there's no plight of the landowner, there's no practical difficulties, because the property was as is and it was a single family and they could still build a single family home on it. We looked at different options, going to, okay, was there conditional use permit process or PUD process? Fortunately, none of those processes would work for this property, mainly because conditional use permits only allow for reasonable conditions, which don't allow you to change property dimensional or performance standards. And then with the PUD for a single parcel, though it's underneath the 10-acre minimum, the PUD process would allow, if it provides a benefit to the community, and unfortunately, this doesn't provide a significant benefit to the community, to put 2 homes there instead of 1. So the only option that they had at the time was a zoning text amendment, which we'd gone through the public hearing and brought it to the city council, where it was subsequently denied. And then at the direction of the city council, we'd gone forward and looked at an alternative solution, which is the what's being proposed here tonight. If the property owner chose to, under the current conditions, if the R1A didn't pass, they would be flexible to build a home basically up to 35% impervious cover, and they'd be able to build it up to 35 feet in height. And they could build a significant size home in there that would be similar to what we see in the Lennar and the Robert Thomas and the MI developments could go on that parcel. The whole idea behind the R1A is to allow some flexibility with the lot sizes to prevent that type of thing from happening in the future, and keeping that character that the neighborhood's had for 40, 60, 80, 100 years, and just kind of keeping that tradition alive.
Yeah, so doing nothing, in my mind, opens us up for a bigger risk of having something land in that downtown area or in that older Victoria area that we don't want. And then again, you've got people who will go in and buy up the older homes and build big homes that are out of character. So that's the concern that I have if we don't adopt a different kind of a zoning for this area.
Mayor, I think we're aligned with that. As Travis points out, the economics would probably, in that parcel, drive a large single home there. In fitting with the character of this neighborhood, that would be exactly what we're trying to prevent from happening this evening. And then I think that it's fair to say that having 2 homes and 2 families in a smaller package would be consistent with the character of the neighborhood as it is. They just need a little bit of maneuvering room. As what I pointed out earlier, we're allowed to get something done that couldn't get done. And it allows for development opportunity to increase the value of those homes around it because there's newer housing stock. So guess to our question about what could we do, we could reject this, ask staff to come back and address the duplex issue for us. Maybe perhaps an approach would be that we limit the percentage in this district to a smaller amount, or we have to then, face the issue of, the comp plan difficulties that we're going to have by not having this in that space. So, or we could approve that.
I think this property opened our eyes to a gap within our zoning for this district. So while part of it is dealing with this area, it said, hey, the back door is wide open. You can build anything you want on these properties, and there's not a darn thing you can do about it. Our response is to come up with this R1A. I just don't love two things on it.
All right, we're a little bit stuck here. Can we go back to our chart that?
That's right.
Back to the chart that shows there we go, this one. Thank you. Let me ask this question of staff. In your research, as you were researching this, did you find something comparable to what you've proposed that didn't have duplex twin homes?
Mayor, the reason that the duplexes and the twin homes are in there is because the 2040 comp plan, which is our guiding policy document, basically says that it requires duplexes and twin homes to be within inside our low-density residential districts. And the R1 is our low-density district, and R1A is still a low-density district with more specific conditions to it. Staff did reach out to Met Council and ask the question as well. And we have to have consistency between the comp plan and our zoning ordinances. So unfortunately, in staff's opinion, it's part of the deal. It's got to be a package deal for the R1A.
Okay. So we have a rock, which is R1, and a hard place, which is R1A. And that's where we are. So, I understand that some members of council have some heartburn about the twin homes and the duplexes, but to me, this is a great way to add a housing option that has a lot of restrictions wrapped around it.
To Councilmember Ivansky's point, can you could you put additional restrictions, in this area, right? What is ever going to be R1A? You can only have two. Is that not feasible either, based off of what you said with the Met Council?
Councilmember, that could be definitely something that we could do additional research on. One of the disadvantages to limiting that type is when Met Council takes a look at our zoning and they do our density calculations and we move into our 2050 comp plan, they're going to look at our potential paper densities that we have. That's going to lower it, which would require us to make up those densities elsewhere within the community. So that could mean more apartments or more higher density housing elsewhere inside our current boundaries, as well as when we look at expanding into the Laketown area through the orderly annexation. It would limit some of the flexibility the city may have with the control of how those developments would look and the overall character of the city of Victoria.
I understand. Well, I understand some of the concerns that have been brought up about the duplex, and the one thing I'm thinking about is there are neighborhoods that do have great-looking duplexes within that neighborhood, and I know some of the concern was it doesn't fit in that neighborhood because we don't have it in that neighborhood today, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't fit in there. So I think. But one of the things I'm thinking of is if we can look at it, take it through a different lens and look at some of the percentages, or maybe put some sort of a bracket around what types of duplexes and twin homes, I think I'm using the right terms there, can be put in there, maybe that's where we land.
Can you go back to, is there a slide with the conditions again, right? Like,
Design standards?
yes, the design, sorry, yes.
Go in the same direction I am.
Unfortunately, with this presentation, I don't have a copy of the design standards in the presentation.
I'm just curious, is it just, because like we've talked a lot about height and we've talked about the side yard setbacks and the front yard setback, right? But like, I guess what are our standard, right? Like, what are we doing to make sure that like these don't look like crap basically in people's neighborhoods, right?
Councilmember, that's an excellent question. In the packet in the staff report is a copy of the ordinance. So I'll just kind of briefly go over those standards that are in here. It's going to be on
Page 61.
So when we look underneath there, it says all residential units proposed for construction on existing vacant lots or lots that become vacant by reason of demolition or destruction of existing structures within the R18 district shall be reviewed according to the following process and standards. So this only applies to redevelopment. It doesn't apply to any current structure or any accessory structures on a property. It doesn't affect any of that. It only affects new conditions. One of the things is relation to adjacent buildings. All new buildings proposed on existing vacant lots shall relate to the design of the adjacent traditional buildings in scale, size, proportions, and character. Right there is the baseline policy where staff through zoning review would be able to take a look at an application and say, you know, this just doesn't fit, and we'd be able to deny it through that process. Now, if an applicant chose to challenge that staff decision at that point, then what would happen is they would file an administrative appeal and go through a process with the planning commission and come back to the city council, where the city council would be able to make the determination if staff made the right decision in denying a permit application based on the design, or if staff made the wrong decision and could approve it. It also provides a method where if there was some negotiation in design to have a project come in, the city council would have the potential ability to be involved in that process.
Yeah, I feel like our stopgap is in those design standards.
Mayor, council, I would like to point out that if a duplex is constructed, one of the things with duplexes is that a lot of times when we think of duplex, we think of two entrances. We think of the older parts of St. Paul or Minneapolis where it's very obvious that the property is a duplex. With these design standards, we would be able to set a policy and a parameter. Say it still needs to look like a single family home. It may have two entrances, but it still needs to have that. There's a lot of homes inside the proposed district that have a detached garage and will have a front door to the property facing the street, as well as a door on the side of the property facing the garage. And if those properties converted to a duplex, you wouldn't necessarily see any exterior change to the property. The only real change you'd see is maybe some traffic patterns with having a second family living on the property. But those would be design standards that staff would need to look at when and if we received applications for a duplex in that case. Same thing with a twin home coming in. It does look like a twin home, but we would look at each side of the twin home and say, does that half of the twin home fit the character of the neighborhood? Is it of similar scale, similar proportions, and similar design and character?
Does I guess would Garden Path be considered a duplex? I guess, right? Like they have two. Like I guess I don't think of them as duplexes, but they, I mean, they're two. They're together and they have two. I mean, and those are very nice. Like I mean,
And Deer Run has them built into that.
Well,
property as
and
Neighborhood.
now they have like where you have one entrance from the street and then your single family goes to either side. So you've got one big grand entrance and then access.
And Mayor Council, looking at Garden Path, what we would see, and actually I will pull it up on Google Maps. I think it'll give a better representation of where it is. If we take this little guy and it's a private neighborhood, so I can't go there, but we're going to go to another spot. Let's see how far we can get in here.
While you're pulling
We,
it up.
we can't get in there, but basically, when you look at a twin home, you're looking at, by building code, it's considered two single-family homes with a shared wall. It's something that we also followed up with the building official to make sure that that was the definition, how they looked at it from a building code perspective. So when you are on the street and you're looking up, though there's a shared wall between these two homes, making it the twin home, they each have their own separate entrances. They each have their own driveways, their own garages. They're not split entry or anything like that shared between them. At that point, if they were a split entry, that would be closer to a duplex. And if it was split entry with a third unit, that would be a multifamily structure, which wouldn't be permitted.
All right. Council, final thoughts. We've got a couple of options here in front of us, so I would, we've got two motions to take a look at, so I would entertain a motion. All right, I will make a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance 484ZC, amending the City of Victoria zoning code, sections 16, 18, and 24. There's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Aye. I'm an aye. Thank you, Mayor.
You're a yes or an opposed?
I'm a yes.
Okay.
I think the risks of a duplex or a twin home going in, given the combination, is low enough.
Okay.
I have a clarification. I only have one nay.
One nay. Councilmember Pedersen. And the motion carries. And I will make a second motion to adopt the resolution authorizing summary publication. We have a motion on the floor. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Council, there are no more items on our agenda this evening, so we'll move on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, anything from you this evening?
I do not, Mayor, thank you.
Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
Mayor, thank you. Yes, our city clerk, Ms. Eddisfold, has an update for you all.
Oh, Ms. Eddisfold, please.
Yes, Mayor and council members. As part of our continued collaboration with Duck Zeller Studios, I present our new art in rotation. It is studios. It is Studio Unite. It's a mix of watercolors and oil paintings.
Very good, thank you. We do have a People's Choice Award. The ballots are on the table over there, and the display is open for public viewing during office hours at City Hall, and we encourage people to come and enjoy this beautiful art. Council members, any other questions or reports from council members this evening? Seeing none, there are no more items to come before the body this evening, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.
Ms.